Hello, everyone. How are we all doing today? Come on, a bit louder. How are we all doing today? That's what I like it. Listen, I want to start by asking you all a few questions. Have you ever felt out of place in a room? Louder. All right. Have you ever felt inadequate about your own abilities when you compare it to someone else's? Okay? And have you been that person who has contributed your success, no matter how small or big, to luck? Raise your hand if you have ever given away the credit of your success to luck. Now, you're not the only ones. It is a very common psychological phenomenon known as the imposter syndrome. It is something that I have suffered from as well. Let me share a story with you. It was a chilly November evening. I remember because we crave for those out here in Dubai. I was standing at the side of the stage, about to go on to give my first speech. You see, I was an employee of a company that I had just bought into and had become an owner of that company now. And in the crowd were over 200 employees of that company. I could hear the hum of the crowd. I could hear the voice of the MC on the speaker, but there was a voice that was the loudest. It was in my head. It was asking me questions. What have you done to deserve to be here? Are you kidding me? You're meant to be the person who's going to inspire and lead these guys? You were one of them just till yesterday. You were having your lunch breaks with them, sharing your office jokes with them, and now you're going to go on stage and lead and inspire them? And the eyes from that crowd looking at me, about to get on, felt like they were looking at me as if I was a fraud. Nevertheless, I got onto the stage, held the mic in my hand, said hello, and my voice cracked. I could feel as if sweat was trickling down behind my neck. And it wasn't even hot. Was it anxiety? Was it self-doubt? No, it was a lot more. But I did what I was supposed to do in that moment. I took a step back and a deep breath. And I started speaking. I spoke about my journey from being an employee of that company to being the owner of that company. I spoke about my vision for that company. I spoke about my plans and my aspirations for the people out there. And all of a sudden, those faces that were looking at me started nodding, started smiling. And in that moment, it struck to me that they were not looking for perfection. They were looking for someone with a purpose, someone who was honest, and someone who had the passion to drive growth. And by the end of my speech, when the crowd erupted in cheer and an applaud, it almost felt as if it was a warm embrace of validation. And it made me believe that I belonged on that stage. I was meant to lead and inspire all these people and many more to come in the future. So why should you care about these feelings? Feelings are normal, right? We are happy, we are sad. Why should you bother? Why does it matter to any of you what is imposter syndrome? Scientifically, imposter syndrome is a newish term. It was only identified by Dr. Suzanne and Dr. Pauline in 1978 and initially thought of something that affects high-achieving women. Now, that's the real definition of it. It is a psychological pattern where individuals doubt their accomplishments and have a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. So it is beyond self-doubt. It is beyond insecurity. It is that constant nagging feeling of a fraud. Now, there have been multiple studies done on imposter syndrome since then. One of those studies identified that up to 30% of students in an academic setting face imposter syndrome. Up to 60% of people in leadership positions in organizations suffer from imposter syndrome. In another study done on a general population identified that up to 70% of the population will suffer from imposter syndrome at some point in their life. And in my opinion, in a fast-paced, highly competitive environment such as Dubai, that number has got to be over 90%. So it is important that we talk about it. And it doesn't just affect me and you. It affects even people who are highly successful. Take the example of Michelle Obama. She has gone on record to state not only does she suffer from imposter syndrome, but that keeps coming back. Albert Einstein, those are his words, not mine. The exaggerated esteem in which my life work is held makes me very ill at ease. I feel compelled to think of myself as an involuntary swindler. This is someone we look up to as the face of genius, and he has suffered from imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is killing your risk-taking ability. It is what's stopping you from innovating. It is what's stopping you from collaborating. It is what is stopping you from becoming the entrepreneurs that each and every one of you in this audience has the capability to be. Even for organizations, if you are not talking about imposter syndrome, you are losing talent, even if unintentional, because in a work environment, when there is high level of imposter syndrome, people tend to quit. So if you're leaders of your organizations, be mindful. So what's aggravating imposter syndrome really? What's causing it? Let's do a quick experiment here, right? Raise your hand if you know the name of the first person to walk on the surface of moon. Raise your hand if you know the name of the first person to walk on moon. Can you shout out that name, please? Amazing. You all got it right. Now, I want you to raise your hand if you know the name of the third person to walk on the surface of moon. Look around you. Do you see any raised hands? You can see the stark difference in the number of raised hands. That is because our society believes in celebrating the firsts. What if I told you today that in the history of mankind, only 12 people have ever walked on the moon, and we yet only celebrate Neil Armstrong? What about those 11 that followed after? Have they not put in an effort? Have they not achieved anything else? Is that not something worth talking about? Why do we forget the name of a Pete Conrad who walked on the surface of moon just 4 months after Neil Armstrong, and yet no one in the audience knew his name? I had to look it up, by the way, for this talk. So it is us, me and you, collectively form what is the society. Now this society is what's creating certain factors and cultural norms. And some of these cultural norms and factors are aggravating imposter syndrome. It's the cause of our downfall as a society. Pressure culture. From a young age, we are asking our children to focus on their grades and their rank rather than focusing on knowledge gained. Perfection culture. We are measuring ourselves against completely impossible standards to attain and then find ourselves feeling inadequate. Comparison culture. You look at yourself on Instagram, social media, and compare the real you against a curated and a filtered version of someone else, and then feel inadequate. Competition culture. You want to be first, you want to be the best, and guess what? You're only focusing on your individual success rather than caring about what matters the most, the collective success of the society, the collective success of this organization. So what do? Stop collaborating. Judgment culture. We are so quick to judge each other from the moment Munir was introducing me to the time I stepped onto the stage. You were judging me already. And you have probably been judging each other throughout the day. And you're so quick at criticizing someone. And that's not just you, it's me too. It's us as a society. What happens is that we have stopped voicing our opinions because of the fear of being cancelled. So what can you do? If we can see that this is what imposter syndrome is, it's affecting a large set of the population. What's causing it? How do we transform? What do we do about it? Where do we go? Number one, the first step that anyone will tell you towards healing is acceptance. You will have to accept and understand if imposter syndrome is something that you suffer from. And not only that, it is also something that will keep coming back in different shapes and forms in your life. Look at the example of Mary Angelou, a well-known author, poet, someone who has written over 11 books, including the well-known autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Yet, every time she started a project or went about to submitting a draft, felt like a fraud. What did she do to transform her mindset? She started with acceptance, accepting that these feelings were a part of her natural creative process. These feelings were not going to disappear on its own, and she started using these feelings as a motivational tool to drive her projects forward. Second, you can focus on facts and data. Stop relying on your feelings of your self-measurement. Stop relying on your own gut to understand whether you've been doing good or bad, whether your achievements are worth enough or not. Instead, take a stock. Take a stock of the qualifications you have gained, the knowledge you have gained, the experiences you have had, and the results you have achieved in order to judge and measure your own performance. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, a successful wrestler, a successful movie actor, and a successful producer, suffered from imposter syndrome. When he was transitioning from wrestling to movie acting, he felt out of place amongst those movie celebrities. He felt as if he didn't deserve that position. And this is at a time when his movies were smashing box office records. He was growing his fan base. So the evidence was saying something else. But yet, this person did not believe that he had to have the celebrity status. So at one of his lowest point, he took a stock. He took a stock of all the sacrifices he had been making, of the training he had been putting in, and of all the charity work he had started doing by then, to understand that he truly belonged amongst those celebrities. Third, therapy. It might be a bit of a taboo subject, but it is necessary that we talk about the importance of therapy. It is not taboo. It is something that is a must. Therapy can help you realign your mindset. It can help you unravel and detangle whatever has been fed into your brain from a young age. Emma Watson, the child actor that we know from the Harry Potter movie series, suffered from imposter syndrome. When she was transitioning from being a child star to an adult movie actor, she felt inadequate about her own abilities, about her own skills as an actor. And it was only after therapy, post her graduation, was she able to understand that imposter syndrome not only affected her, but many others. And then she was able to also see herself in a unique setting. She was able to see her own unique acting abilities. Fourth, accept compliments. We can do a whole keynote about accepting compliments, but to keep it short, don't give away the credit of your achievements to luck. Don't disregard your own achievements and compare your own achievements to someone else's and make yours look smaller in front of them. Just start saying, thank you. Thank you is very simple to say, if nothing else, because it will allow you a sense of validation. Take a stock of what have you achieved and say, thank you. That's all that matters. The former CEO, Howard Schultz of Starbucks, someone who's responsible for putting it on the global map, had very humble beginnings. In his early days at Starbucks, he was the director of retail operations. And it was at a trip to Italy where he liked the coffee culture and decided to bring a coffee house experience to Starbucks. So when he started pitching his ideas to his board, they loved it. They loved his ideas. They were praising him for his innovation. They were praising him for his leadership. And he was dismissing them and giving the credit away to the hard work of other team members or luck. And when he realized this pattern, he wanted to do something about it. So he started by saying, thank you. And that became a sense of validation for him, which drove him even more motivated and drove him forward towards success. Finally, consider this. You have to celebrate your wins, no matter how small or big they may be. Oprah Winfrey, the epitome of success, someone that we all know. When she started her career and got her first job as a news anchor, she thought that she did not deserve that job. She thought she got lucky. And she was afraid that people are going to see through this. As she grew and became more successful, she realized this pattern as well and wanted to break it. She wanted to shift her mindset. So she started celebrating her wins, whether it was winning an Emmy or starting her own production house. She started celebrating by either treating herself to a nice dinner or a weekend getaway or even buying a token of appreciation. But what this allowed her to do was not only shift her mindset, but use it as a very powerful motivating tool. So before I go, I want to share a story with you from my younger days. When I was a young kid, I would visit a city called Rajkot in the state of Gujarat in India. That's where my parents hail from. And we would go there pretty much every summer vacation. And I used to love the food culture of this city. Gujarat is a dry state, so people pretty much socialize over food rather than something else. And I used to, in particularly, like this ice cream place that would serve natural fruit-based ice cream. I'm talking about the year 1996. So for those who are from Dubai from then would realize that we did not have access to something like that back then. I mean, we would have most probably Baskin Robbins or the ice creams out of the supermarkets or the soft serve cones from the cafeterias. But getting a natural fruit-based ice cream was a wish. And I could get it out there whenever we went on a holiday. So when I was about 10 years old, we went on one such trip as well. But this time, it was just me and my mother because my father had stayed back due to some work. And since he was here in Dubai, he was tasked with collecting my report card from school because I had just given some examinations a few weeks ago. So it was me and my mother sitting at the living room in India, waiting by the phone to ring. I mean, there were no mobile phones back there. I wasn't necessarily nervous or anxious because I was a decent student. I was content with my grades and my Bs. The phone rang, and my mother answered the phone. As I looked at her face, the expressions told me everything is okay. The tone of her voice told me everything is okay. So I was okay. And she passed the phone on to me. And I took the phone and I answered, said hello. And it was my father on the other side saying, congratulations, you have done really well. you came second in your class. I was shocked for a minute because I had not put in any extra effort to get that grade. I wasn't expecting that grade. But it was the first time in my life that I was being appreciated for something to do with studies. So I did what a 10-year-old is supposed to do. Started jumping up and down the couch, demanding a treat from my mother, demanding a treat to that ice cream. And guess what happened next? It shook me. Her words cut through my heart. Don't get too happy. You have achieved nothing great. You only came second. Look at your aunt's kids. They always come first. These words pierced through my heart. These words made me really, really sad and disappointed. But with time, you forget about things. I was only 10 years old at this point, and life moves on, and so did mine. And I had completely forgotten about this incident, unless and until one day I found myself sitting in front of a therapist. You see, what had happened was I had grown up, and I had joined the corporate world. And I was finding myself being short-tempered, finding myself frustrated, finding myself angry, specifically with the performance of my peers. I did not realize at that point why was the case, and hence I went and I looked for therapy. And it was through therapy that I identified that because I was made to believe at a young age that I wasn't special, I had been measuring the performance of everyone else against mine, the effort of everyone else against mine. And if their effort or their performance failed short of what mine was, at that point, I was finding them incompetent. And that is what was causing that sense of frustration. It was through therapy that I was asked to do an IQ test, where it was identified that my IQ is higher than average. It was identified that I'm able to process information much faster, and I was able to see myself as a special being. I was able to see myself in the unique setting that I was made as God's creation. And also, I was able to see that everyone else have their own unique abilities. And this allowed me to start living a much more fulfilled life. So today, I ask each and every one of you, what are you doing to fight this invisible demon called imposter syndrome? Many people have come on the stage and will keep coming on the stage talking about fear. What are you afraid of? How can you be afraid of something that you know already? You know what it takes to be successful. You know what it takes to be an entrepreneur. What is stopping you from being one? I ask each and every one of you to reconsider how your life story is going to be written. Life is not about the destination, but it is about the journey to that destination. And there is no destination at the end. It is all about that journey. And as long as you keep growing and you keep moving forward in the right direction, write about each and every failure that you've gone through. They spoke about my success when they introduced me. They didn't tell you I have over 100 failed ventures, but yet I am successful because I am growing. I am moving forward. I ask each and every one of you, rise up, rise up, rise up, and rise together. Thank you.